Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This time I think I'm going to talk about something more personal instead of, the stick figure related content that I think you guys are probably more looking for. But it's a chance to get to know me a little better and something I think that's very interesting about myself. I cannot smell, to put it simply. Um, Not exactly, but I have a heavily reduced sense of smell. And it's mostly because of my allergies. So, in Colorado, where I currently live, I, I am allergic to cottonwood trees, not just the pollen that they produce, but the trees themselves. Which I don't know if you know about trees, but they tend to not go away ever until they're cut down. So it's kind of a year-long allergy thing. I just have this allergic reaction yearly. It used to be hives. I used to get hives whenever I had consumed or touched almonds that eventually transitioned into cottonwood trees. And then thankfully, my allergic reaction transitioned into a sinus related reaction where my nose would start to get very stuffy and runny and clogged. Um, and I took medicine for it for a little bit, but I didn't do it for long. I'm not a huge fan of taking medicine, and thankfully I don't really have any prescribed to me, so I don't have to. So if I don't have, and like if my sinuses are acting up just a little bit, then I tend to just kind of sniffle throughout the day, which is why you might hear me sniff a lot through my streams. Um, Even through some of these recordings, I might have sniffed a bit. That would have been for that very reason. Blowing my nose doesn't do anything, it just kind of resides there. But the reason that I can't smell is because of this allergic reaction. Not necessarily a condition itself, but more so that my nose has been clogged for so long that my body isn't used to obtaining any scent at all. Even when my nose is clear as day, it is very difficult for me to be able to smell anything. You're probably thinking that could result in a lot of health issues, such as like, what if there's a gas leak? Like, would you be able to tell if there's gas or like smoke? Like before, like you can ideally smell smoke before you can see it. What if there's a fire? And those are genuine concerns. I, for the most part, cannot smell smoke. It has to be very strong in order for me to smell it. I live in Colorado and we get wildfires occasionally, sadly. And, when we get those really bad days where where smoke is falling out of the sky, ashes are falling out of the sky, sorry, then I can start to kind of smell it. But even then, it's a stretch. But for the most part, yeah, I can't smell smoke. I'd have to be able to see smoke visually in order to tell that it's there. And then gas leaks as well. Another fantastic point. I can't smell gas at all, or at least very rarely. It has to be in very large quantities for me to be able to smell it. But like, say, pumping my gas at the gas station, I don't notice anything. The air all smells the same to me. Say I turn on the gas stove for a little bit and try to get the spark, and it goes on for just a little bit too long. I can't smell it, at least for not for a long time. So yeah, that does become a very apparent issue. Thankfully, all of my appliances in my household are all electric, which is good. But I mean, that doesn't eliminate the threat of a fire and smoke. So that is still a real threat. Thankfully, I don't live alone. But if that ever does happen and I'm home alone, I guess, yeah, I am kind of fucked there. But it's just the card I'm dealt. I could prevent it, but I'll get into that in a little bit. The other thing that I don't really like about not being able to smell is spoiled milk. It's something you don't really think about. And I know you out there just had the thought in your mind, or you audibly gag, like, oh, spoiled milk. Because every time I say that to someone, they give the same exact reaction. Yeah, it's not pleasant. Usually, if you have spoiled milk, you'd be able to smell it and tell if it's gone bad, if it's sour. And sometimes, depending on the milk that you get, the milk will turn all chunky, and that's a good sign to not drink the fucking milk. But there is some milk that just goes bad and it's just salty. It looks the same. The texture looks exactly the same, but it tastes completely different. So what I end up having to do is get a small glass, a small bottle or something like that, and pour a little bit of the milk in there before like making cereal or something. Take a small sip of the milk and hope that I got enough to determine if it's good milk or bad milk. Sometimes it's not enough and I end up ruining my cereal or whatever meal I'm trying to prepare. Mold is also a big issue. If any food in the fridge has gone bad, I can't tell unless someone else is there to either smell it for me or until it's too late and we've already eaten it. So, yeah, not the best situation. But I, despite all that, I love not being able to smell. It is fantastic. And it could just be that my body is used to not being able to smell. But a few months ago, I was able to get the chance to reobtain my full sense of smell, or at least most of it back. I went to the doctor for something unrelated to my nose, but while I was there, I was like, okay, well, this has been a little bit of a concern. I'll bring it up and see what they say. So I told them, like, hey, yeah, I can't smell anymore, and I'm suspicious it's because of my allergies. So they give me this nasal spray that essentially drains my sinuses. But my nose was so goddamn clogged when I took this nasal spray. I was sneezing for I shit you not, by the way. I was literally sneezing the entire day. It was hell. I was being tortured with that thing. But I kept being told by my family that this is good. I should keep doing it until it's fully cleansed. There's a lot of buildup that's just been sitting in there for years. So I was like, okay, you guys are right. I'll do it a couple more times. I did it sparsely. I was supposed to take it every day. I didn't. I took it like every other day. There was like 1 or 2 day gaps in between it. But eventually, the sneezing didn't get as intense. And one day, I didn't have any sinus-related reaction, and I could actually breathe clearly through my nose. And it was kind of a nice change of pace. Later that night, I ended up going to the bathroom, taking a spooky dookie. I think it was October. I'm going to go with that because that's going to make that joke make sense. But suddenly I was just like, whoa, my shit smells bad. And then like a cartoon, my eyes lit up. I felt like an exclamation mark appear above my head. I was like, my shit smells bad. I can smell. And so I like ran out of the bathroom when I was done. With my pants on, of course. I ran downstairs. I opened up my fridge. I had just made French bread pizza just the night before, which is my favorite meal. I fucking love French bread pizza. And I was able to smell it for the first time ever. And I was like, oh my God, that smells so fucking good. Let's go. And then I opened up my back door and my neighbors were having a barbecue at the time. I could smell barbecue smoke for the first time and it smelled delicious. I'll give them that. It smelled really damn good. Only issue is eventually I noticed that I was sneezing more. You know, like there was a brief moment where I wasn't sneezing, but every time that I would be outside, my nose would be just pouring. It would be draining itself constantly. I would be sneezing constantly. I essentially just became allergic to nature because I don't know if you knew this about Colorado, but cottonwood trees are everywhere. It is difficult to find a location in Colorado where there are not cottonwood trees. And I could move from Colorado, but I am not really in a financial spot to move currently. That I'm also very comfortable with where I'm living, so that's not even I'm not even considering that. I just kind of have to suffer through it, which is okay. I've gone through it for so many years. I can keep going through it for a few more. Why not? But eventually, because of this, I didn't want to have an allergic reaction every time that I stepped foot outside. So I eventually just kind of stopped taking my medication, and it wasn't really, like being able to smell again wasn't like something I should really be focusing on, I don't think. Unless it is, in which case I take that back, but I don't care right now because my life's pretty damn good without being able to smell. It's like, I don't know. I just find the ability to smell miserable, in my opinion. Because there's a lot of things out there in the world, in your everyday life that just smell bad that you could go without smelling. Just so many more bad smells than there are good smells. And you might say like, oh, but the good smells are what make it worth it. No, because even if I do smell something like food, for example, and it smells really good, then I just get hungry. But I'm not able to eat yet because it's either not ready or I'm doing something else and it's not my food. Maybe it's my neighbor's barbecue and then I'm hungry for barbecue, but I don't want to cook anything or I can't cook anything because I was busy working or something like that. So that makes me miserable because I get really hungry and I can't really do anything about it at that moment. But the final nail in the coffin for me was that, even though food smelled really good, fresh cut grass smells really good, flowers smell really good, and rain, I had learned especially. Oh my God, I didn't realize rain actually smelled that fucking good. But it wasn't worth it because of the cottonwood trees being everywhere. So every time that I stepped foot outside and I smelled flowers, I was like, oh God, no, I have to get away. Because like at that point, I think I've become so sensitive to any pollen, period, that a regular person would, of course, get some kind of sinus-related reaction to smelling a lot of flowers or being in nature a lot. But mine is that times 10 because I haven't been able to smell that sort of stuff for a long period of time. So my immune system or something like that, I'm no scientist. I don't know that kind of terminology, but I'll say it because it makes sense to me. My immune system, it doesn't like that. It is not used to that, so it doesn't know how to properly fight against it. So I have found it easier to just have a heavily reduced sense of smell with a constantly clogged nose. It sounds bad, and sure, it can be at times especially, but you get used to it. And really, I see it personally more like a superpower than anything. And even superpowers have their own kryptonite, like leaking gas and smoke or spoiled milk. But ultimately, I enjoy not having that sense of smell. If I could just get rid of it in its entirety and not have my sinus issues at all, I would take that in a heartbeat. In all honesty, I would not want to be able to smell again. For as arguably dangerous as that is, I just find the world a lot more pleasant to live in if I can't smell anything. But that's just my personal take. Of course, I know a lot of people love being able to smell, and maybe my mind is just not used to being able to smell, so it just kind of I try to shut it out as fast as possible as some kind of defense mechanism. But whatever it was, I'm good with that. I'm living just fine. I'm living the life. So feel free to tell me how wrong I am and how unhealthy this is in the comments. I'd love to hear that. But thank you all for listening and watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you unsubscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.